Okay, so welcome. For today's practice, you'll need something at one point to place underneath the sacrum or the hips. So it could be a block, but it can also be a blanket that is folded up, or even if you have a bolster, it could also be a bolster. So at one point when we're on the back, we're gonna put the block underneath. So having that one handy, and then we're gonna lie on the back. So the practice is to release the front of the hip. A lot of the focus goes onto a muscle called psoas, something that a practice then can be useful if you've been sitting a lot, but also if you've been walking or biking. So basically, yeah, if you've been living. So we start on the back. We'll do a little check-in to start with. So you could do that either with your feet on the mat in a constructive rest pose, with the knees resting against each other, feet going a bit wider, or you could slide your legs straight, whichever is more comfortable, and you could have a little wiggle, or maybe it's just lying still that feels the best option. Just gonna take a moment to let yourself notice your breath. Notice your energy level tonight. Gonna have quite a mellow, slow start. So if you feel that there's a bit of like restlessness in you, you could just wiggle around in the beginning a little bit, or shake the legs up towards the ceiling. So having a bit of a release before we settle. And then gradually you could let yourself come to pelvic rock movement just to start with, so the knees can separate and you can arch the lower back away from the ground, and you can flatten it towards the ground, inhaling when you arch and exhaling when you flatten. Just a few rounds like that. Just noticing what is the rhythm that kind of naturally arises, a rhythm that feels good. And finding a smooth, soft movement, smooth, soft rocking. Yeah. And then that's right away. Next time the spine kind of comes through that middle portion between the flat and the arch, you could walk your feet a little bit wider, letting the arms rest out from the shoulders, and then we'll just take the windshield wiper movement with the knees dropping to the right, the head rolling to the left, and then the knees switching, coming through the center over to the left while the head rolls to the right. So these very basic kind of template movements from our somatic sequences, and then just letting yourself, again, just finding that pace and letting the gravity kind of pull the thighs downward. And then go just one more time to each side. You can choose whether you drop the knees on the inhale or on an exhale. Both work. Perfect. And then bring the knees back to the center. Rest the knees against each other for a moment, and then bend into your elbows so your arms are more like goalpost arms. And then sliding the right arm slowly upward, so not lifting, but the back of the arm is sliding upward at any angle. Reach it however far it is comfortable, but try to feel the connection to the ribs, to the waist. Maybe your head rolls to the left. Take a breath in, and then slide the arm back and let the head roll back through the center. And we're going to go side to side. So the left arm slides upward, any angle that feels good, breathing into the side ribs, and then lowering. So again, at your own pace, letting the arms travel up and down a few times more. I'll go one more time through the right. And through the left. And then again, taking the arms back, and you could again straighten through the elbows. And then letting the knees separate, so if you had them together, so they're hip distance apart, walking the feet so they are wider than the hips. We're going to find that in flare of the thigh again. So the right, now we're going to do a whole series for the right side. So the right knee is going to drop inward. Left knee is going to stay how it is. So the right knee is dropping inward. And then letting it rise back up. And do that a few more times. The right knee is dropping inward. Just the weight of the thigh, just feel that action. And any amount. So again, if they feel any restriction around the hip, so you're just going to drop the leg however much it comfortably can go. And then experiment, you could add, once the knee drops inward, there could be a little bit of a reach through the knee towards the back of the mat. So there's a bit more kind of like a line of tension that you can feel coming up into your waistline. And then the knee goes up. So do a few more of those. What you can add is the right arm sliding upwards. So while the knee drops, the right arm slides up. And when you reach through the right knee, you reach also through the right fingertips. So again, that connection from the lower body into the upper body, and then knee slides up, arm slides back down. So a couple of more times. I like to do the movement on the inhale. And the returning on the exhale. So the pelvis stays in this one relatively steady. You might feel the right side of your hip getting lighter as you reach the knee. There might even be like a little bit of a gap between the ground and the right bum, but more or less the pelvis right now stays. And then do one more of this version. The knee dropping inward, the in flare. Breath in, arm reaching, and then bringing the arm back, settling it out from the shoulder, and then sliding the left leg straight. So left leg comes straight, right foot stays on the mat. You could play with where that right foot is precisely. So as we start the movement, the foot could come closer to the left foot. It could stay a little bit further out to the right. But the beginning is the same. The right knee drops inward. Now you're going to press down through the big toe side of the right foot. So your pelvis and actually your ribs and your whole kind of body will rock over towards the left side a bit more. But the right arm stays anchored. The right shoulder might break ground a little bit, but more or less you anchoring down through that right arm. And the head might roll to the right. And then slowly returning back down, knee comes up, head rolls back to the center. So a version of an unwinding movement. So dropping the knee, pressing the foot down as you roll, as you spiral, as you let the spine spiral. And as I said, the right foot could stay a little bit more over to the right, or you could play with variations where the right foot comes a little bit closer to the left, and then you drop, and then you press, and then you reach through the knee, the right knee, as your body kind of pours over onto that left side. So rock like this. Often in these rockings and movements, I invite you to feel into the fluid body. So it's more like the body pours over to the right and then pours over to the left. And one last thing that you could add here, when you're hips are spiraling, spine is spiraling, you could have the right arm spiral upward. So that's the external rotation, the upward roll of the arm. We've been playing with that, but the arm rolls upward. Again, it doesn't really leave the ground, but there's a curling upward. So there's a spiraling that moves then from the spine into the arm. Spiral on the inhale, return on the exhale once more. And then next time when you're down, when you're coming towards the ground, slide that right leg straight so that we can pause for a moment. You can lower the arms a bit so that you can feel that right side now. So the left side was more kind of receiving the movements, right side was more the active one making the movement. Just noticing sensation through the right side of the body, the hip, waistline, shoulder. And then bring the soles of the feet back onto your mat and grab for your block or whatever you're going to use under your hips. So both feet come onto the mat and I'm going to elevate my hips a bit higher. So if the block feels very edgy and hard, so the sacrum is quite nerviated, and so if it doesn't feel comfortable, see if you can pad the block or use something softer. It doesn't have to be a big height, just a little bit of height underneath. And then the right leg goes straight. So it's the right leg that straightens. The same, that leg where the foot was on the ground, now it slides straight. So we're going to continue feeling into the front of the head. If it works for your body, bring the left knee towards your chest. So you're going to interlock your fingers around the left knee and drawing it in and letting the right leg relax. So see how that feels. And if there's any restriction in the left hip for that, like there's pinching in the left hip, for example, then you could keep the left foot also on the mat and just the right leg straight. But if you can, hugging that left knee towards the chest. Take a couple of breaths, just notice what you can feel. So if you feel too much sensation in front of that right hip, for example, maybe see if you can find something lower so that you're not too high up. And then we're going to lift the right leg just like a few centimeters off the ground, so it's hovering. And then you're going to gently kind of rock it or glide it over to the left and over to the right. And making it like a pendulum, so right, left, right, left. So you're going to find a bit of momentum. And if that feels too much, you could also slide the heel on the ground, especially if you have like a slidey surface you're on a floor. Just a few more times. Over to the right, over to the left, over to the right, over to the left. And then relax it on the ground. Relax it on the ground. For a moment, draw the right toes up towards your knees so the leg is active. Reach a little bit to the foot side of your mat through that right heel, so as if you want to kind of reach the thigh bone, lengthen the space around the hip socket. So reaching the heel away, so there's a bit of activation. And then turn the right toes inward however much they can go, so the thigh rolls into an inner rotation, any amount. So for me it's not going to be much, it's just a small roll inward. And just take a breath. Empty a breath, so just one more. And then relax the leg completely. So relax the right leg, so the toes can flop out however they naturally flop. And give it about 3 more breaths there, now in a more passive yin way. Notice what you can notice, feel what you can feel. And then for a couple of more breaths, I'm going to release the left foot onto the ground. I'm going to keep the right leg how it is, and taking the right arm upward once more, so feeling that right side of the body long. Everything still stays very passive and relaxed. And letting the breath travel and kind of paint through that right side of the body, just feeling that length to the right side. Give it another breath. And then press the left foot onto the mat enough so that you can slide whatever you had under your hips, slide it away, put it onto the side, but stay in this shape with the right leg long, with the right arm upward. I'm going to find one more flow from here. So I'm going to slide the right leg, the straight leg, over towards the left. It's going to slide on the floor, and the right arm is also going to slide over towards the left on the floor. So that's my inhale. Then I'm going to slide my arm and the leg back to the starting position. I'm going to start to bend the right knee so it comes to that butterfly position on the side, and I'm going to bend the right elbow, and the elbow slides down towards the knee. So out to the side, out to the right. And then I slide between the two shapes. So I'm going to slide the right leg straight, the right arm straight, and I'm going to slide them both over towards the left. I'm going to slide them back towards that starting point, and then starting to bend the knee and the elbow as they move towards each other on my right side. So right side gets quite short. And then do that one more time. Slide it over towards the left. Breath in. Sliding it over towards the right with that bent knee, bent elbow coming towards each other. And then next time when you slide them over towards the left, pause there. Let your left knee drop out to the side, so the foot that was on the ground, you're going to now pivot the knee, it drops over to the left, and use whatever you used under your sacrum. So whether it was a block or a cushion or a blanket, place that under that left thigh so it feels completely supported. So the left knee that dropped out to the side. And then wiggle yourself. It's kind of like a half moon shape, a crescent shape, or sometimes called the banana shape, with the right leg, straight leg, that has shuffled over to the left, and the upper body and the arm as well. Your left hand could stay down, or you could take the left arm up as well. Maybe it holds the right wrist if it reaches, if that's comfortable. And then let's pause here for about 5 or 6 breaths. Again, that continuity of length through the right side of the body. A little bit yin-like in the yin poses, where we soften the outer layers of the body as much as possible. And letting yourself land in the bones of the body, in the flesh of the body, as you notice the sensations. Let yourself soften what can soften. And definitely pausing here at an edge that's not too intense. Give it one more breath. And then let's slide back to the center with the leg, with the arm. Release the block, keep it handy but a little bit off your setup, and then just noticing that left side, so a little rebound or yielding here, either with the legs straight or the feet can be on the mat. So let your attention travel through the tissues on the right side. Noticing the difference perhaps from the right to the left. And then as before we do the opposite side, you could slide the feet onto the mat, and we'll take again a few rounds of arching and flattening. So coming back to something symmetrical, maybe sensing and feeling your own center as you move. So inhale, arching, and exhale, flattening. Then letting your arms open out to the sides. Take the feet a bit wider, just a couple of rounds of both knees dropping from side to side. So the windshield wiper movements, knees and thighs to the right and to the left, the head rolling from the right to the left. And then next time, when the knees are back at the center or pointing up towards the ceiling, let's start our sequence for the left side. So we're going to now continue dropping the knee, but we drop just the left knee inward, keeping the right foot on the ground, right knee pointing upward. Slow it down. Find the in flare, the inner rotation. Gradually, the things that you could add, if you wish, is a little bit of a reaching through that left knee towards the back of the mat, and the left arm sliding upward, reaching through the fingertips towards the head side of your mat. See for yourself what you need to add, what feels useful. So I'll do that a few more times. Excellent. And then next time, when the knee is up, when the arm is back down, shoulder height, slide your right leg straight. So we'll add a bit of rotation and a bit of that spiraling. So the knee, left knee, is still going to drop inward, but now as you press the inner blade of that left foot down, you can let the pelvis begin to roll. The left side of the body curls a little bit more away from the ground, so you're pouring your weight over to the right side. Breath comes in, a little bit of reaching through that left knee towards the foot side of the mat, and then rocking back. And so on this side, at any point where you feel nice and useful, the left arm could do the upward roll, so called an external rotation. So you just begin to curl the pinky side of the hand upward towards the head side of the mat. Now find smooth rocking motion. See if you can even out some of the edginess, and finding a rocking that is not efforting. Rock into the shape on the inhale, return on the exhale for 1 or 2 more rounds. Beautiful. And then next time when you're on your back, slide the left leg straight. Let yourself again observe for a moment. Slide the arms into a comfortable position. Let everything flop. Legs heavy. Or maybe your experience of your legs actually is not heavy. I just noticed my left leg actually feels quite light. And then as you slide the feet back onto the mat, reach for your block again or a cushion, what you're using for a height under your hips. Lift the hips, place whatever it is underneath your sacrum, and then slide the left leg straight. Hug the right knee to your chest. Same thing applies. If that for any reason doesn't work, there's pinching around the hip, then you could keep the right foot also on the mat. So I'm interlocking the knees around, the fingers around the right knee. Just for a moment, pausing, relaxing the left leg, noticing what you feel, where you feel, and whether there needs to be any adjustment. Again, making sure. And the first thing that we did from here was the gliding from side to side. So the heel could stay on the surface, whatever you're on. Or if the surface is very sticky or bumpy, you could lift it a little bit, just that it's hovering just above the ground, and then letting the leg swing from side to side, right, left, right, left. So I'm trying to tap into a bit of a momentum here. So that's why the swinging maybe is not super slow. Letting it rock me. The leg goes a couple of more times, right and left, right and left. And then let the heel come back down onto the ground. Draw the toes up, so it's a bit of active, and reach the heel away. See if you want to open the hip joint a little bit more, and then curl the toes inward, so the thigh bone rolls inward in the socket. Excuse me. And it's most likely is not going to be a very big roll. So it's just a little bit of curling inward through the toes. Take a breath. And then relax that leg. Let it really flop. Maybe you need to bounce it a few times to let it relax. Soften the shoulders. Let's hold it in this shape for a couple of more breaths. Then you could return the right foot onto the mat, but still stay in this shape, and take the left arm upward. So you feel that left side body long, but quite passively resting on the ground. Move your attention through that left side as if your awareness could kind of paint that side a certain color. Give it one more breath. And then press the right foot down so that you can slide the prop away. Keep it handy, maybe on your right side. We're going to use it in a moment. But keep the right foot on the mat, the knee pointing up. So that's our little kind of side body flow, is to begin to slide the left leg and the right arm over to the right. So they slide on the ground, curling you over and opening the left side. Then you're going to slide them back, beginning to bend the left knee out to the left side. So into like a butterfly shape, and left elbow also bends and slides down. Slide the left arm, the left foot away from each other towards the opposite sides of the mat, and then slide them over towards the right. And now find that flow for yourself, where the right side squeezes as the elbow and knee come towards each other, and then when the right side opens and stretches as you slide the hand and the foot over towards the right. Also pulse like that maybe one more time. And then next time when you're sliding the arm and the leg over, pause. Let your right knee drop out to the right and use something under that thigh. So use your prop, whatever you were using under your hips. Now place it under that right thigh and knee so it feels supported. And shuffle over to the right any degree that feels that you can sustain it for about 5-6 breaths, and quite in a yin way again. So letting the edge that you chosen, letting it be mild enough so that you can soften through the muscles as much as they're willing. Softening through the jaw, so that both jaw joints relax. Softening through the eyes. As we pause in stillness. Breathing space into that left side. Rested, that there's a certain wakefulness as we hold our attention, as we focus, but lightly, so not a whole lot of mental forcing, but letting those sensations kind of just hold your awareness. Then give it another breath in. Slow breath out. And then begin to bring yourself back. Slide the leg back, slide the arm back, slide your right leg straight. And let's take again a moment here. Still with that left side. Notice how it settles to the ground, the left side, the left hip, the left shoulder. Beautiful. And then let's slide the feet onto the mat one more time. If you had a block, place that block between the thighs. So we'll just do a little kind of centering. Sometimes when we move out and do this unwinding, spiraling action, it's nice to come back to the center. If you don't have a block, you can just imagine that you're pressing against something, and don't put the block too narrow. So have a generous space between the knees so that again your lower back feels happy. Take the hands on either side of the hips. And then as you press the heels down onto the ground, begin to lift your hips. The height doesn't matter so much. We just want to kind of tune into the midline by pressing the thighs into the block and just feeling the inner thighs, maybe a bit of action in the glutes and the hamstrings. Just making sure, that the lower back is happy, so don't push for the height. Feel into that containment or tone that's in the legs. Take another breath in Another breath out. And then slowly, slowly, slowly begin to release. As you're down on the ground, you could let the block go one more time, letting it out to the side. And then let's hug the knees in. Let's make a little transition from here. So rocking on the back perhaps a little bit from side to side, and then at one point either roll to one side to come up or hold the backs of the legs, gain a bit of momentum, and then rock yourself up to your seat. Good. And then let's come to hands and knees. So we have time for a short flow here. And if you had a padded surface, you could take your blanket away so that you have your sticky mat to practice on. The blanket could stay close to you, and you could fold it nicely so that you can use it in the kneeling positions if the knees ask for that. So you could have that there. And let's come for some cat and cow motion first. So the hands are going to be under the shoulders. Knees are going to be under the hips. And lifting your chest and your sit bones when you inhale, and then rounding the back as you exhale. So you know this movement, inhaling, exhaling, rounding. Slowly you could let that movement, of course, as always, as I always guide, it could start to include some different types of shapes, which I don't need to guide. So your body might want to just wiggle and move in its own way. Let your hips move, let your shoulders move. Play with that a little bit. What wants to emerge? Taking the attention from the spine, from your hips into your spine, your back body. Just a couple of more rounds. Perfect. And then we'll bring the right foot to the top of the mat. So you can step it forward, having the hands be on either side. This is where you might want that blanket under the knee if the knee is somewhat sensitive. And let's come up so that when you come up to kneeling, you can come a little bit further back so that you can have the hip and the knee and the shoulder in one line. So right foot is on the ground. And we're going to try to now curl the tailbone under from here. So the flattening of the back that we did on the ground to start with, we're going to try to find it in this position. So the tailbone curls under, the back flattens, and then you could add an upper body movement where the forearms come together forward. I'm just rounding my upper back as well. So upper back rounds, lower back opens, and you might feel that in front of that left hip. So breathe into that space that you've just created through the whole back line of the body. Take a breath into that back line. And then let the elbows open to the sides. Press that front heel down, and then let your hips sink a little bit towards the ground. So now the front opens, you can squeeze through the back, and the back, your lower back, comes into a little bit of that arch, but it needs to still feel comfortable. So you're going to lean forward just the amount that works for your body. And then back off, curl tailbone under. So you making that lower back area broad and letting the forearms, elbows come together, making the upper back broad, breathing into the back. And then again, letting the hips drop, opening the elbows to the side as you open through the front. And then do that action just one more time. Flow through it one more time for yourself. Yeah, going back, rounding. Yes. And then leaning in, opening. Perfect. And then next time, when you're leaning in, let the arms come down towards the ground. Take the back toes, tuck them under, lift the back knee off the ground for a moment. So reach back through the heel, press the front foot down, and then let's step back to downward facing dog. If downward facing dog feels too dynamic at the moment, then you could also just lift back to all fours and include some movement from there. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. through downward facing dog. And then you could step your left foot forward either from there or soften the knees down so that the left foot can come to the top of the mat. And so same exploration from here. We're going to back off a little bit as you come to kneeling. So backing off, by that I mean you're going to take your hips back on top of the knee, shoulders on top of the hips, and then curling the tailbone under. So pressing it under, taking the arms in front. So the same shapes, broadening through the upper back, taking a breath into that back space. And then as the arms open, letting the hips lean forward, just mindful how much, what is it you feel, front gets open. And then play with those shapes, couple of more rounds. Backing off, broadening the back, leaning in, opening through the chest. There's a bit of a back bend that happens here, so your pelvis coming into that forward tilt, anterior tilt. And then do that one more time, and next time when you're leaning forward, when the arms open, you can let them circle all the way down. So fingertips come down, back toes tuck, back knee lifts. You pause for a moment, a bit of activation as you press back through the heel, forward through the ground, and then stepping back, downward facing dog. Let's circle forward to plank pose again. If that feels too dynamic, knees can be down. Pause in the plank for a moment where your upper back broadens, back of the neck is long, thighs hug in, and then slowly lower the knees and lowering down towards the ground by pointing the elbows back, pressing the palms down, slowly, 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 finding your way onto the ground. Lengthening the legs back, and then taking your forearms down onto the mat. So you're coming towards the Sphinx pose. Let yourself press down through the forearms, lift through the chest, shoulder blades move down along the back, take a breath in, and then begin to press your forearms, elbows down, hug your belly away from the ground, and widen and broaden the upper back as you curl away from the ground. So arching, making the back broad. Slowly lower the belly towards the ground. Lower ribs come towards the ground. Chest lifts. You drag back through the arms. So front body broad, taking a breath in. And then one more time, press away from the ground. Hug your navel away from the ground, your ribs away from the ground, but let your back body, especially that shoulder blade region, upper back, get really broad. Take a breath in. And then again, let your belly come towards the ground. Land in a Sphinx where you feel the chest is lifted, the shoulder blades are gliding down. Feel that back bendy shape. And again, if this feels too much for the lower back, walk the palms slightly more forward. Take another breath in. Take another breath out. And then slowly lower onto the ground. Take a moment where everything drops and sinks. So forehead rests on the back of the hands. The legs are going to flop. The shoulders relax. You take a breath in. And as you exhale, feeling the weight of the body. And then bringing the hands under the shoulders. Lifting up to all fours. Walk the hands under the shoulders, round the back. And then take a breath in into that rounded shape. So breathing into that rounded back. And then as you exhale, let the buttocks rest back towards the heels, forehead down on the mat. Give it a breath in child's pose. And then let's one more time stretch to downward facing dog just for a moment. Reaching the bum up, heels down, knees can be bent. Palms pressing down slightly forward. A breath in, a slow breath out. Then walk your feet to the front of the mat. Keep them hip distance apart and let your knees bend enough so the belly can come close to the thighs. So there's not too much intensity through the backs of the legs.
Take a couple of breaths, and you can experiment straightening the knees for a moment, just to a point where you feel the back body, and then you soften the knees again. Do that one more time, straightening the knees, just when you feel the back body, and then softening them again. And then from here, we step the right leg back for one more lunge. So the right leg goes back to the back of the mat, this time keeping the knee up. As you press down, let yourself rise up to standing. Feel into your balance. Might need to adjust the width of the legs. And then let's bend the back knee from here, so we can again find that movement of the tailbone curling downward, feeling that sensation in front of that right hip. Good. And so here we could take the hands and then bring the backs of the hands towards each other, so that widening in the back body, back knee is bent. And then begin to straighten the back leg. That might not go all the way straight. If it's uncomfortable in the lower back, then keep the knee slightly bent. And then curl the arms open, they curl, the thumbs curl up and towards the back, and letting that movement kind of open the chest, and you get a bit of like a pulling, a stretching sensation in front of the shoulders. And then let's do that just one more time. Soften the back knee, curl the backs of the hands towards each other, even chin comes in and the upper back gets broad. And then begin to straighten the back knee. Notice how much straightness feels comfortable. Spiral the arms open like wings to the sides, and create a little bit more like a space through the front body. Breath in. And then let the back arms soften down, take the hands down, and then step back, downward facing dog. Oh, we were actually at the top of the mat, weren't we? So let's walk forward one more time. I was going to keep us at the front of the mat. Again, a forward fold at the top of the mat, so that the left foot can step back. Left foot can step back. Find ground. Find your roots, rise up to standing, stabilize, right foot a little bit to the left foot a little bit to the left, right foot a little bit to the right, left foot to the left. Soften the back knee, let your tailbone curl down, just feel that sensation in front of the hip, and then add the arms curling towards each other, so the backs of the hands come towards each other. My chest doesn't lean forward, my chest stays on top of the hips, so I'm trying to create that broadness in the upper back. Breathe into that space that you've created, and then begin to straighten the left knee, spiral the arms open, find your wingspan. So where the arms exactly go is like you feel those kind of nerve flossy sensation through the arms. What feels interesting is the word. And then do that one more time. Knees open, backs of the hands towards each other, back bodies broad. Breathe into that space. And then fly those wings open to the sides. Maybe they feel a little bit further down. Maybe they a little bit further up. Spiral outward through the fingers. Reach. Take a breath. This time draw the arms up. Make a circle and bring that back foot forward to the front. Soften the knees, maybe a little bounce through the knees as you are folded forward. My newish favorite thing for a little release. And then our often used transition, we use the squat to come back closer to the ground. So bending, walking the feet a bit wider, sitting between your heels, taking a breath here. If your heels are off the ground, just make sure the knees are happy. We're just not going to stay for that long. Beautiful. And then let the arms come back behind, and then we lower back onto our backs. Good. As you're on the ground, pause for a moment. Take a little snapshot if there's anything that the body needs. So I'm going to offer something here, but you might we have like
7-8 minutes left, so you might choose something different. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk my feet a little bit wider, and I'm going to do one more bridge pose, but this time the feet are kind of off the mat, toes are pointed out, and I'm going to emphasize feeling the front of the hip, so I still keep my kind of tailbone lengthening towards the backs of the knees, so not so much about the back bend, but still feeling the front of the hips. Another alternative from here would be that you use the same block or whatever you use, and you just do a passive back bend by placing that underneath your hips and then pausing there like that. So rather than an active version, you could be switching to a more passive version. So 1 or 2 more breaths, or maybe there's something completely different that you want to do with this space here. Give it one more inhale. One more slow exhale. And then if you did lift into that back bend, you could slowly return back onto the ground. Then keeping the feet wide, taking the arms open from the shoulders one more time, dropping the knees to the right and pausing there for a moment. So letting your head roll to the left, the weight of the thighs. Letting the breath maybe travel through that left side, feeling the front of the left hip. Give it 1 or 2 more breaths. And then letting the knees travel up on the inhale, and then the weight of the thighs dropping over to the left on the exhale and pausing. Let your head roll to the right. Take a breath and feeling the upper side, the right side, the hip, the waistline. Give it 1 more breath. And then slowly return the knees up. Take your rest either by sliding the legs straight, or you could keep the feet on the mat and the knees resting against each other, whichever is more comfortable for you. You can slide the arms further down. I'll hold space here again for about a 5-minute pause, for a 5-minute relaxation, integration, however you want to think of it. Choose a shape that feels really comfortable. See if your eyes want to close, so that can help maybe not to get distracted. Letting yourself feel the weight of the body. Noticing what you can notice. Feel there's a settling through the hips, through the shoulders, through the back of the head. As the force of gravity moves through the body. And then as you hear my voice coming back in, if you can stay for longer here. And if it is time to move, let yourself slowly begin to find your way back to seated. Once you're seated, just pausing for a moment, so letting yourself just tune in and just sensing the effect of this hour that you've given yourself of movement, gentle movement, but also that awareness that you've brought to the body. And then see if there is a gesture that you want to finish with, let it be yours. So it might be spontaneously hands resting somewhere on the body, could be palms together, so find something that is meaningful to you. Thank you so much for joining.